The bus station in Vitoria, Spain is crowded on this bright May day in 2017. Passengers chat while sitting on the benches waiting for their buses. They bustle around vending machines and line up at the ticket counter. The massive cavernous station echoes with hundreds of chattering voices and scheduled announcements. An older, kind-looking gentleman with gray hair strolls through the crowd with a sign hanging from his neck. Curious heads turn to read his demand for justice. Then, more people appear with signs carrying the same message. Unified clapping breaks out from around the station. Two young women come forward from the crowd and begin dancing. Then more young people. Then more. They're singing in Spanish to the tune of "We Will Rock You." The dancing crowd grows. A guitar joins, then a trumpet, and then the chanting gets louder. It's a flash mob with dozens of participants. Their signs read, "Pablo Ibar, Juicio Justo." Fair trial for Pablo Ibar. This huge crowd in Spain is raising money to pay for the legal defense of the man accused of the 1994 murders of Butch Casey, Sharon Anderson, and Marie Rogers, thousands of miles away in Florida. But why are they doing it? And why, nearly 24 years after his arrest for the murders, is Pablo even still on trial?
Hi, this is Suzanne Sanzer from the Felonious Florida team. You're probably listening to Felonious Florida because you love stories of true crime. So if you haven't heard about this new subscription box called Hunt-A-Killer, you need to check it out. The experience is like receiving a package from a serial killer every month. And it's your job to find him, or maybe her, and solve the crime. Here's how it works. Each month, Hunt-A-Killer delivers a box to your doorstep. Tear off the tape, rip it open, peer inside. You'll discover objects, tools, photographs, clues, and creepy correspondence. It's going to be your job to put the pieces together. And you'll have access to thousands of other home detectives with the same mission. Hunt-A-Killer gets you into forums, secret Facebook groups, videos, podcasts, and more to help you sort out the evidence. This is so popular, new membership is limited to $500 per week. But then the mysterious packages start arriving. Waiting is the hardest part. Now, Hunt-A-Killer is helping support our show by offering you a 15% discount on subscriptions. You just have to visit www.huntakiller.com/Florida and use the code FLORIDA to get the discount. Get investigating today. huntakiller.com/Florida.
From the Sun Sentinel and SouthFlorida.com, in association with Wondery, this is Felonious Florida, the podcast that leads you into the dark side of the Sunshine State. I'm Lisa Arthur, and this is the story of the Casey's Nickelodeon murders. Episode 4, Pablo. The legal fight that brought the flash mob to the hometown of Pablo Ibar's father in Spain last May is dizzying. When the first trial of Pablo and his co-defendant Seth Peñalver ended with a hung jury 3.5 years after the Casey's Nickelodeon murders, the two cases separated and were tried again on their own. In 1999, Seth was convicted and sentenced to death.
The second trial, we focused on some things we shouldn't have, but you never know. You're just in it. You're in it fighting. And the second trial, the government had seen it once, so they had our defense already in mind.
That's Hilliard Moldoff. He represented Seth Peñalver for 18 years, starting with the hung jury all the way through Seth's 2012 acquittal. He always believed Seth was innocent. The fact is, the mountain of evidence the state of Florida originally thought it had on Seth was actually thin. There was no physical evidence, no fingerprints, not a hair or a fiber, and certainly no DNA linking Seth to the murders. What the state had, what most of their case relied upon, was a witness named John Clemesco. He had identified Seth as the man captured on tape by a security camera in Butch's house, wearing a ball cap and sunglasses as he gunned down Butch, Sharon, and Marie. Clemesco also claimed he had seen Seth and Pablo with a Tech-9 semi-automatic gun and driving a shiny new and expensive-looking black car on the morning of the murders. A car like Butch Casey's Mercedes that had been taken from the scene and set ablaze in the Florida Everglades on the day of the murders. While Seth Peñalver sat on death row, he and his lawyer appealed his conviction all the way to the Florida Supreme Court. The justices agreed with Seth. The evidence, they ruled, was scant, and the court second-guessed the jury that convicted him and ordered a new trial. For Seth's third trial in 2012, Hilliard Moldoff had a new strategy, and this one pitted Seth against his original co-defendant, Pablo Ibar, and touched off a seething feud between them. Moldoff argued that it was Pablo Ibar who killed Butch, Sharon, and Marie, with the help of two other men, Alex Hernandez and Alberto Rincon. The accusation compelled Pablo to write to Seth, and prosecutors got their hands on the letter. In it, Pablo challenges Seth's assertion that the strategy comes from his attorneys, and he doesn't agree with it. BS, Pablo writes. Stop denying it. Man up. You're not a victim here, just admit it. And Seth's lawyer had some new evidence to present to the jury in the 2012 retrial. Key pieces of evidence that he believed would convince a jury that Seth Peñalver was not guilty of the murders. He gave Seth credit for finding the new evidence. While waiting for his third trial, which came 6 years after he won his appeal in 2006, Seth combed through 50,000 pages of documents from the murder investigation. Page by page, he looked for holes in the case with the help of a childhood friend who worked as a paralegal. Seth discovered in the documents that police actually had at one point in their investigation considered Alex Hernandez a suspect. But they had never said so, maintaining that the only two suspects had been Seth and Pablo. And then, buried in the documents, came a confounding sheet of paper that had never been revealed before. It's called a lead sheet. It was a long paragraph typed up by someone at the Broward Sheriff's Office, known as BSO. It described a man named Johnny McGill, who walked in on Wednesday, June 29, 1994, looking for Deputy Christopher Schwab. Schwab was the officer who discovered the 3 bodies at Butch Casey's house just 2 days earlier. McGill said he got Schwab's name from the newspapers and had urgent information about the case. Deputy Schwab was off that day, so someone else recorded the stunning information. On the lead sheet, he called it an alleged confession. Johnny McGill said he was the one who had driven Butch Casey's Mercedes-Benz convertible 70 miles to Palm Beach County and set it on fire. He said he did it on orders from his boss. But who was his boss? The note didn't say. He was probably told that Deputy Schwab would get back to him. That never happened. Johnny McGill was shot to death the next day during an altercation outside a Miami strip club. And motorcycle deputy Schwab was killed in 2012 when he turned his bike into the path of an oncoming Mercedes-Benz in Pompano Beach. With these revelations, Seth Peñalver was inspired to keep digging through the documents, and he discovered even more, including a reward that had been paid to the state's key witness. Attorney Moldoff said Seth discovered a document that showed lead detective Paul Manzella had okayed a $1,000 Crime Stoppers reward for a tipster who called in to say that Seth Peñalver was the man in the ball cap and sunglasses. Moldoff knew John Clemesco was the only one who used that wrong last name for Seth Peñalver, He used it when he fingered Seth in the videotape that Manzella had showed him. While Moldoff was cross-examining Manzella on the witness stand, he asked if he had ever authorized a reward in the case.
So in trial, I have this now, and the state calls Manzella twice for different things in the case. Every time he's on the stand on direct examination, I say to him, by the way, you never paid a reward in this case like Crime Stoppers. No, never. I go, right? No. Okay, do it twice. State rests. So now I call Manzella to the stand on my case, right? States rested their case. And I say, remember I asked you twice, did you pay a reward? He says, yeah. I said, you never paid a reward? Crime Stoppers? Nothing? No. So I take this all up and I go through it with him just like that. You met him on the 28th. He gave you the name Peñalver. The next morning at 7 a.m., that Crime Stopper SIP comes in with Peñalver. You say pay the thing. You said, it says, I made a mistake. Really? You paid a reward and you forgot about it? Yeah.
Moldoff argued to the jury that John Clemesco was a crack addict just 1 month out of prison. $1,000 was a fortune to him. His identification of Seth couldn't be trusted, the lawyer argued, because it led to a payday. Moldoff said he had broken the credibility of both Clemesco and Manzella. In another blow to the prosecution's case against Seth Peñalver, his lawyers revealed 2 videotapes that for years the prosecution denied having. They were recordings from the security system at Casey's Nickelodeon from the night of the murders. They were found mixed in with the 200 tapes found at Butch Casey's home. Butch Casey had met Sharon Anderson and Marie Rogers at the bar before inviting them home on that fateful night. And a witness had claimed to have seen Seth Peñalver and Pablo Ibar together at the bar hours before the murders. If they were at the bar, the security cameras would have captured them there. But when the tapes were inserted into a video recorder, there was nothing but snow. The prosecution brought in an expert from BSO to opine on the tapes, and his answer was a huge boost for the defense.
So we put those tapes in and play them. They're all snow. The whole tape is snow. BSO hires a tape guy to evaluate them, like, what's that about? He comes in and goes, someone erase these tapes. I went, oh, baby, you're my guy. Someone erased them. Either the manager or the cops, yeah. But, you look at the jury and go, whoa, how's that? It's those kind of things. That was one of those examples. Like, well, I would never have known that. And we just, stumbled on it. I mean, because if they had never been recorded, you see different things. These have been recorded and then erased. You look at the jury and go, this is, it was like, I never do that. Like I say, you see, we've been in trial, I'm telling the jury the same thing here. I've been working on it for 20 years, and lo and behold, something happens for the first time 20 years later, still pointing to he's innocent.
It all added up to enough for a jury to find Seth Peñalver not guilty of the Casey's Nickelodeon murders. After 18 years in prison and 6 on death row, he was free. Pablo Ibar's defense will likely use some of Seth's discoveries in the upcoming trial. But Pablo has always had a steeper hill to climb than Seth. And now, the prosecution says it has new evidence that will prove Pablo's guilt. And it's right from the scene of the bloody murders. Felonious, Florida is brought to you by ZipRecruiter. Are you hiring? Every business needs great people and a better way to find them. Something better than posting your job online and just praying for the right people to see it. ZipRecruiter learns what you're looking for, identifies people with the right experience, and invites them to apply for your job. These invitations have revolutionized how you find your next hire. In fact, 80% of employers who post a job on ZipRecruiter get a quality candidate through the site in just one day. And ZipRecruiter even spotlights the strongest applicants, so you never miss a great match. Businesses of all sizes trust ZipRecruiter for their hiring needs. The candidates are out there. ZipRecruiter is how you find them. And right now, listeners of Felonious, Florida can try ZipRecruiter for free. That's right, free. Just go to ZipRecruiter.com/Florida. That's ZipRecruiter.com/Florida. ZipRecruiter.com/Florida. ZipRecruiter, the smartest way to hire. The case against Pablo Ibar in the Casey's Nickelodeon murders has always been more solid than the case against Seth Peñalver. The most damaging and credible witness in the case is Gary Foy, Butch Casey's neighbor, who saw two men driving Butch's Mercedes on the morning of the murders. During a police lineup, Foy identified Pablo Ibar as the passenger in the car. He didn't identify Seth Peñalver as the driver. In all the years of the case, Gary Foy has never wavered in his story. He's been steady and consistent, a defense attorney's worst nightmare. Then there is the new evidence prosecutors say they have against Pablo. Investigators put a T-shirt found on the ground outside the front door of Butch Casey's house through a new round of DNA testing last year. It is believed to be the T-shirt one of the killers used to cover his face during the murders. It had Butch Casey's blood on it, but despite repeated testing over the years, no DNA from Pablo or Seth had ever been found. Until now. Prosecutors say the test last year turned up touch DNA belonging to Pablo Ibar. To do DNA testing in the 1980s, labs needed samples of body fluids, like semen or blood, the size of a quarter. By the 90s, a dime-sized sample would do. And as technology evolved, a test could be run on a sample the size of a dot. If you could see it, you could test it. Now, touch DNA lets you test a sample even if you can't see it. And you don't need body fluids anymore. 8 skin cells from the outermost layers of skin can be tested for DNA. That's what prosecutors say they have on Pablo Ibar. A partial match of touch DNA. But the defense will argue that because touch DNA is easily transferred from object to object, the shirt was contaminated in handling years after the crime. If you touch Ibar, then touch the shirt, his DNA could be there. And Pablo's supporters scoff at the new evidence. They say it's bogus. After all these years, after test after test after test, prosecutors have suddenly found DNA on the T-shirt.
That shirt has been tested for many years, and nothing has ever come back on Pablo. Fingerprints have been tested and never have come back on Pablo.
That's Tanya Ibar, who married Pablo in 1998 after the first trial ended in a hung jury. She's also his alibi. She and several members of her family testified in Pablo's second trial that she was in bed with him at her house at the exact time of the murders of Butch, Sharon, and Marie. It was a reconciliation for the two. Earlier in the year of the Casey's murders, 22-year-old Pablo had gotten 16-year-old Tanya pregnant. When she got an abortion, Pablo got upset. He wanted to keep the baby. So the two broke up. Tanya says that she and Pablo reconciled in the early hours of the morning of the murders. He stayed with her until the afternoon, and he was seen by Tanya's younger sister and a cousin who was staying with them.
What I did know is, going back through those dates, that he was with me those dates. And from that point on, I knew I had to be honest, whether I wanted to be involved in this or not. Did I ever think that I was going to be involved in it to this extent, and this is what transpired? No, not at all. It was difficult, once he was found guilty, knowing I was going to have to live this life. I mean, there's no question. I mean, I think in that trial where he was found guilty, and I did testify, obviously, in that trial, a lot of people tried to say, oh, she's doing this because she loves him, she wants to be with him. Granted, I couldn't imagine people not think anything else, okay? But we're sitting here now, 20-something years later. Really? I mean, have I not shown now? I mean, this is not a life that anybody wants to live. There's so many nights that I've gone to bed, beside myself, crying and just wondering, when is my life going to be? I mean, I have so many friends, their lives are going on ahead of me. They're having families, they're having weddings, they're going on vacations and doing things that, are the norm that you would actually have. And that wasn't me. I was getting up early at the crack of dawn to go visit Pablo, drive a long way, to wait outside, to be humiliated numerous of times. I mean, people think that jail visits or when you go to see someone is something glamorous or something nice. No, it's people stereotype you and put you into this box that you're this person. And I was far from that, It just happened to be the person I love, the person that I knew is innocent, is sitting in that building. And the only way for me to get to him is to bring myself here and visit like everybody else, So that it's been very hard, not just on myself. I think of my family. I mean, I have 4 sisters that have husbands and kids. And I feel bad for them because this was my choice, not theirs. And my parents. And the things that people have said to them.
Tanya Ibar knows this is likely Pablo's last chance to convince a jury of his innocence. If he's convicted, the odds are slim that he would win another appeal and yet another new trial. The upcoming trial is the result of Pablo Ibar's conviction and his second trial being overturned in 2016. Pablo claimed his lawyer, K.L. Morgan, did a poor job representing him. And Morgan, who died in 2014, supported Pablo's appeal, saying he was sick during the second trial in 2000. The state Supreme Court agreed.
Going through reading the material in connection with this case, I don't know that I've seen a lawyer behave as this lawyer has. Morgan in this case seems, off the wall. To my mind, this is not professional behavior.
Tanya Ibar said Pablo had flirted with the idea of firing Morgan before the 2000 trial, then decided it would be too risky.
I think at that point, you're, and again, a lot of people don't realize, you're not used to going through murder trials. At the time, we didn't obviously have the funds. And you think K.O. has already done this trial. We did get a hung jury, okay? Was K.O. at the time having a lot of issues? He was. There were times where Pablo did want to fire him because he wasn't doing the things he needed to do, but we were all so scared. Who were we going to get? Another public defender? And now we were going to go back to another trial. All of this information was just going to be too much for somebody to handle. So we figured we'd stick it out with K.O. You almost feel like you're desperate. You have no other choice but to go with K.O.
Morgan's biggest blunder, according to the appeal, was that he failed to hire a facial recognition expert. They specialize in determining whether a photo of a face matches a particular person. The most significant piece of evidence in the investigation of the Casey's Nickelodeon murders was the videotape that captured the killings inside Butch Casey's home. As the killers left, the home security camera had captured the image of one of the men when he removed a t-shirt covering his face. The image was blurry, but prosecutors said it was Pablo Ibar's face. A facial recognition expert could testify that the man in the photo is not Pablo Ibar. Such an expert told the jury Seth Peñalver's face did not match the face of the man with the ball cap and the sunglasses in the same video. It was one of the things jury members said led to Seth's 2012 acquittal.
Cops are like bulldogs. Once they get the scent, they won't look elsewhere. And the scent of Peñalver, what happened is they looked at Peñalver and went, oh, he looks like the guy. I hired a forensic anthropologist, the world's leading forensic anthropologist, Mehmet Yasser Iskan from Turkey. He's legendary. If you read the Supreme Court opinion reversing Peñalver's case, they lauded this guy, saying, this guy's world-renowned, and he testified, I have serious doubts about, and what he does is he takes measurements on your face, on the face of the person. So he goes, gets a picture of Seth, he takes photographs of Seth, takes the video, enlarges it, and then measures like this thing here, I forget what he called it, it's like a nameith or a nasmith or something, and the ear distance. He said, I have real doubts because these things are different distances on the guy in the video and Mr. Peñalver. There was two measurements that he really had a distinct impression were wrong.
Pablo's legal team plans to call such an expert to testify this time around. He's also beefed up his defense team. This time he'll have 4 lawyers on his side. It's going to be an aggressive defense and an expensive one, maybe as much as $1.2 million. Enter the flash mob in Spain, and a huge effort, including the help of the Spanish government, to fund what could be Pablo Ibar's last chance to win his freedom.
Hi, this is Suzanne from the Felonious Florida team. I just placed my first order on Blue Apron. Blue Apron is the leading meal kit delivery service. Blue Apron delivers fresh, pre-portioned ingredients and step-by-step recipes right to your door. It doesn't get any easier than that for us busy parents. Even if you don't have kids, there's a plan for you as well. I love the variety of tasty dishes and the interesting ingredients depending on the season. Each week, they offer 12 new recipes. One of the choices for this week was black bean and veggie enchiladas. Yum! My boys are going to love those. Here's something cool. For 6 weeks, from April 16th through May 21st, Blue Apron is teaming up with Airbnb to bring you the best home cooking from around the world. Each week, the menu will feature a recipe developed in collaboration with an Airbnb experiences host like Cece, a chef from Shanghai who makes incredible Kung Pao chicken. That's the beloved sticky, saucy mix of crispy brown chicken and vegetables. Oh, and here comes the best part. As a listener of this show, you get your first 3 meals free at blueapron.com/Florida. Go check out this week's menu at blueapron.com/Florida. Blue Apron, a better way to cook.
Pablo Ibar's defense for his upcoming trial is being bankrolled by an organization in Spain, where Pablo's father was born and raised. Spain is helping because it is staunchly anti-death penalty. Pablo invoked his Spanish citizenship after he was condemned to death, and his father asked Spain for help. The leader of the group that is raising the money, Andres Krakenberger, is a veteran of Amnesty International. His group is called the Pablo Ibar Anti-Death Penalty Association. He's already raised nearly 75% of the expected costs of Pablo's defense.
I think he was wrongly convicted, and the reason why he was wrongly convicted was, as the Florida Supreme Court recognized on 4th of February 2016, that he did not have an adequate legal counsel. And because he did not have an adequate legal counsel, he was condemned to death with proof that was, if I remember correctly, the exact words of the Florida Supreme Court were proof that was scarce and weak. So obviously, Pablo's right to a retrial has then been confirmed, and we're now on the, I hope, last stages towards starting that retrial and having the opportunity to demonstrate his innocence.
Krakenberger staged the flash mob in Vitoria, Spain last May as part of a fundraiser. Groups of musicians and others turned out to demand justice for Pablo, who has become a cause célèbre in Spain. Major developments in Pablo's case are front-page news there.
Public opinion here in Spain mostly is pretty much convinced of Pablo's innocence. I would say it was front-page news in key moments. That is, when he was condemned to death, when he received his, when the Florida Supreme Court decided to give him his retrial. A few other occasions in between, such as when the case went back to Broward County, sort of concrete milestones along the way.
Krackenberger believes Pablo was with Tanya when the murders happened and couldn't have done it.
He was not in the scene of the crime. He can prove that because he was with, at the time he was going out with his then girlfriend, who is now his wife, and he was caught in her room. There was a bit of a family scandal because he was caught in her room. Pablo cannot be in two places at the same time.
Before the Casey's Nickelodeon murders, Pablo Ibar had a relatively clean record. Krackenberger and Pablo's family say he isn't a criminal. He isn't the monster seen on the videotape of the murders.
Well, first of all, Pablo is a very unique human being, a very loving, caring, compassionate person. Someone that, again, in this situation, I didn't look to try to find, but obviously due to the fact of kind of what transpired and knowing him, that individual, and knowing that he wasn't capable of what the paper has made him look out to be, is really a great person, somebody that, I have grown to love, to trust, and to build my future around. I mean, he really is a great person inside and out.
The men in the videotape at Butch Casey's home in Miramar, Florida, were brutal. They beat Butch Casey and terrorized his companions, Sharon Anderson and Marie Rogers. The men each put bullets into the victims' necks and heads. Pablo Ibar's younger brother, Michael, says Pablo is not that cold-blooded killer. The brothers are 5 years apart, but were extremely close growing up in Miami and Broward County. Their father, Candido Ibar, was a world-class athlete who came to America to play jai-alai. That's a popular sport in Spain similar to racquetball, but played with long wicker baskets. Their mother, Maria Casas, was Cuban. The couple divorced when Pablo was 11 and Michael was 6.
I looked up to my brother a lot. I think we have about a 5-year age difference. So as a little kid, he was like, the big deal, right? Especially because he just was like, he is that kind of personality. You know what I mean? Everybody liked him. Everybody wanted to be around him. Tremendously athletic. So anything he played, he was good at. Like I remember having a crossing guard. I'm like in kindergarten or first grade, and I'm walking home from school, and they would have the crossing guards that cross you across the street, the students, like the 5th graders, and stuff, and like it was a girl that walked me across the street, and then just kept walking me. She says, "Oh, you need somebody to walk you home? You want?" And walked me all the way home. It's like probably like half a mile away, and I remember thinking my friends were looking at me thinking like, "Oh man, you're so cool. You get this older girl is walking you home." And I thought I was like awesome. I get to my house and she goes, "Now you make sure you tell Pablo that I walked you home," So that kind of thing. He was always really, really good with ladies. And like I said, people wanted to be around him. And people that referred to me as Little Pablo probably for the first half of my life. Because I was a lot younger and because we look a lot alike.
Candido had hoped his son would become a professional jai-alai player too. Shortly before the killings, Pablo was living with his father in Connecticut while he trained. A month before Pablo was going to sign his first contract, his father says he got hit in the head with a ball. It knocked him out. His father said they decided Pablo should take a break. So he went back to Florida to live with his mother, Maria. Shortly after his return, Pablo Ibar was arrested and charged with the Casey's murders. During his first trial, Maria denied telling police that the man in the photo from Butch Casey's security camera was her son. Maria Casas died of cancer just after that trial ended in a hung jury. Michael Ibar says the gravity of the upcoming trial is nerve-wracking.
It's for me. It's definitely it's nerve-wracking. You know, we've known he was innocent, and we've been trying to push so hard for so long, and then you finally catch a break, which was, we feel like we could never get a break in anything, but now it's time to go to trial again, and you just know how serious it is, and how things aren't always fair, unfortunately. So you just you're excited. At least for me, I'm excited and really into it, and at the same time, you know, I'm scared for my brother.
Candido says it's a hopeful time for him, better than the years spent fighting for Pablo to get a new trial.
Well, now it's easier because we know trials coming. We had past years was tough because we didn't know what's going to happen. Everyone had a chance. So now, I mean, it's tough, but now at least we have a chance to prove something. I think it was a real nice young man, and we never have any problem at all. And anybody knows him, you know, they can see it that way. Unfortunately, we are and we are, but hopefully everything will come in okay.
Tanya says she wishes people could know the Pablo Ibar she knows.
You know, one thing I have to say about Pablo, going to prison, you see a lot of people and you see a lot of guys, and, you know, they can be cruel to some of these women. You know, you're not here on time, you didn't bring in money. Pablo is so opposite. I mean, so many times he's told me, go on with your life. Don't live this. It's not fair. You didn't, you know, it's okay. And he's so he just, you know, tells me, if you're too tired, don't come. Or, you know, I'm going to give you an example. My sister got divorced. And Pablo does get support from Spain. Obviously, Spain has been very supportive. A lot of people write him, and at times send him money during the holidays and stuff like that. And I remember my sister had just gotten divorced, and my nephew wanted some game thing, some video game. And she didn't have the money for it. You know, she just couldn't cut it because she was trying to pay for the house and her husband had left. And he had received some money for someone from Spain, you know, for a holiday so that he could order some extra food and so forth. And he said to me, you know, Tanya, give that money to your sister so she can buy Max his game that he wants or whatever. And, you know, if I have to go a month or two without having anything extra or eating like that, it's fine, you know. For him, it was more important for Max to have that than for him to really just be selfish and say, you know, who really cares about him? He's home, he has everything. It's just the person that Pablo is. He's always trying to give, always trying to help.
People think she's crazy for spending her life waiting for a miracle to happen. She knows this, so she keeps her story a secret from most people. Tanya lives in Central Florida, where she works as a nurse. Most of her co-workers don't know her husband is in prison. In many ways, she lives a double life and sees little choice.
I think in society, our life is meant to what's convenient, what's, you know, you're supposed to be married and a white picket fence and, you know, your husband's home and this and that. But when it comes to the truth and suffering, people, you don't want to do that. I mean, it's so much easier for me to walk away from this. I mean, I could leave Pablo. I'm sure I could find someone if I wanted to. I have a secure job. I don't need a male to support me. You know, I don't need any of this. This has been a nightmare, truly. My life has been a very hard life, all because I know the truth of something and I've decided to stand by it. So I'm condemned for that. Nobody wants to look at me and say, okay, 23 years later, maybe this girl is saying something. Maybe what she's saying is the truth. She's believed in him. She knows he didn't do this. Why would I stay in this? what have I gotten from this? Absolutely nothing. I have to half the time live a double life because I can't tell people where my husband's at, because again, people will judge me.
But she believes her husband is innocent, and she sticks by his side.
I think I was very moved also by his courage and his willingness to continue to fight and not to give in, or, not to do, just say whatever, so forth, to find the easy way out. I think I kind of started to feel a lot for him because I just felt like he was such a strong individual. And at some point, do you feel, I knew he was innocent. I don't know, it was hard for me to see past the fact that here's this innocent guy, he's sitting in jail, almost getting ready to possibly be sentenced to death for a crime he didn't commit. It haunted me inside. Even if I wanted to get up and leave at the time, I just felt like, how could I live with myself? And maybe some people can, and I have to believe some people do. You go on with your life. Who really wants to take this on? But I fell in love with him. I fell in love because I knew he was not that person. I knew where he was. And I think after the first trial, I think we really, truly thought we were going to get a not guilty verdict. I think we came very close to that. And I don't know, after the first trial, when it was a hung jury, I just, he did want me to move on. He didn't want me to go through this. And I remember taking like almost 2 weeks where I just really thought about this. And, was I going to move forward in my life? What was I going to do? But at that point, I had fallen in love with him. I believed in him so much that I couldn't see myself being with somebody else. I just couldn't leave him alone. I think that haunted me more than the fact of what life I might lie ahead. I think it just bothered me. I don't know. I talk to so many people and they say, well, you could have just let it go. I don't know. So many nights I remember going to bed and just feeling like, how do you just walk away from something like this, leave someone to rot and die? Because that's what I would have had to done, is just leave him there to rot and die for them to execute him.
The loving support of Pablo Ibar infuriates Deb Bowie. Her sister, Sharon Anderson, was one of the victims of the Casey's murders. She's sickened by the idea of going through a fifth trial, alone this time because her mother died last year.
Walking into the Broward County Courthouse, almost makes me just want to vomit as soon as I walk in there. I'm just so tired of it. If you had told me in 1997 that, in the year 2017, you'll be preparing to go to court after one of them is acquitted and the other one gets a brand new trial, I don't think I would have been able to even see myself living. I just don't want to be dragged back into some place of not being able to function, but I can't not go. I don't have any business having anything to do with Seth Peñalver and Pablo Ibar. And neither did my sister. Like, the fact that our paths in life even crossed is such an insult to me. And I don't mean that in an arrogant sense, but I've worked hard. I've worked for everything I have in life. I do everything that I can to lead the right life and to try to be successful, be a good role model for my kids. And the fact that I have to keep getting dragged into the gutter with these people makes me angry.
She has no doubts that it's Pablo Ibar and Seth Peñalver seen on the videotape terrorizing, then shooting Sharon. No matter how grainy the video is, she says she can see the faces on the tape clear enough.
There's been so much said about this videotape being grainy and being, that it's grainy and you can't really determine who's who, but that's nonsense. From the moment I saw that videotape, I could tell you who my sister was.
Margaret Edwards agrees. She says she knows in her bones that Pablo and Seth killed her daughter, Marie Rogers. But Tinto Batts, the former South Florida Sun-Sentinel reporter who covered the murders in 1994, says it's difficult to tell who's right. The quality of the video is so poor. But after all this time, he says it's hard to believe somebody else committed the murders.
if if he's not convicted, then okay, so then what happens now? Are they going to start over again, or have they, run out the string? You would think that if there was evidence for somebody else, it would have come out by now. So the question is, then, if not them, who? So is it possible then that there are murder suspects, people who murdered 3 people, walking amongst us for the past quarter century, and we don't know who they are? You have to ask that question. If not these guys, then who did it then? Is it a matter of the state's case is just not strong enough to get a conviction?
And that is the question at the heart of the Casey's Nickelodeon case. Did police miss other suspects because they abandoned their search for the killers too soon? When they decided Pablo Ibar and Seth Peñalver were their only suspects, did they abandon the possibility that the killings were connected to the mob? Or to a loan shark who Butch owed money to? Should they have asked more questions of Johnny McGill the day he walked into the Broward Sheriff's Office to say that he drove Butch's Mercedes into the Everglades and set it on fire at his boss's direction? Did they shove aside Butch's own words about fighting with mobsters and his foreshadowing of looming danger in the weeks before his death? That's what Butch Casey's son, Brian Bond, thinks. He says he tries not to dwell on what happened. It's even difficult to talk about his father's murder with his sister, Alexis Sukarski, who was 10 when Butch died. But he has a theory about the murders. Even if it was Pablo Ibar and Seth Peñalver who pulled the triggers, Brian doesn't believe anyone has ever gotten the full story behind the murders. And he certainly doesn't think his father died in a random home invasion robbery gone bad.
I think he was targeted. I think that I don't think that these guys were. I think there was a higher reason other than these 2 guys. I think there was something more to it, and I really don't think that anybody's ever got to the bottom of the real reason why this triple homicide happened. Somebody put a hit out, I think.
Nearly 24 years after the murders of Butch Casey, Sharon Anderson, and Marie Rogers, after 4 trials, 2 convictions, 2 death sentences, and 2 successful appeals, no one stands convicted of the ruthless killings. The Casey's Nickelodeon murders remain as unresolved today as they were the day the bodies were discovered. This is Lisa Arthur. The South Florida Sun-Sentinel will be covering the trial of Pablo Ibar, which is scheduled to begin this summer. Felonious Florida will post updates, so stay subscribed. But next, we want to bring you an equally brutal and mysterious case from Florida. I'm here with my co-host, Juan Ortega.
Hey, Lisa.
Hey, my partner in crime. Juan has been working on this equally brutal story for many, many months. Tell him about it, Juan.
In 2007, a series of kidnappings and murders that police think originated outside a mall in Boca Raton, Florida, stunned the community. 2 women and a little girl were killed. Another mother and son were terrorized. The killer may still be out there. That's next week on Felonious, Florida.
Thanks for listening to this episode of Felonious, Florida. If you're enjoying the podcast, please rate us on Apple Podcasts and tell your friends about our show. It's available at feloniousflorida.com, Apple Podcasts, Wondery.com, or your favorite podcast platform. You can go online to see photographs, video, and read more about the cases we're featuring at feloniousflorida.com. And be sure to like us on Facebook. Felonious Florida is produced by David Schutz, Lisa Arthur, and Juan Ortega. The The Casey's Nickelodeon Murders is reported and written by your host, me, Lisa Arthur. Editing by David Schutz and Randy Rogoski. Sound engineering and production by Cindy Choi, Carlene Jean, and Sean Pitts. The Felonious Florida team includes Danny Sanchez, Dana Banker, and David Selig. Hi, this is Lisa Arthur. If you'd like to support more journalism like this, you can help by joining the Sun Sentinel, South Florida's leading source for news, information, and entertainment. Visit sunsentinel.com/join.